There is a moment when the search reaches its turning point, not because we have found all the answers, but because we realize that the question we had been asking all along was wrong. Lesson 139 brings us precisely to that point. It is no longer about seeking, investigating, or trying to understand who you are. It is about accepting what has never stopped being true. I will accept atonement for myself. This affirmation may seem simple at first glance, but it carries within it something the Course calls the end of choice. Not because you lose your freedom, but because you stop choosing between what is real and what is not. You simply recognize what always was. What does it mean to accept atonement? The word atonement usually carries a heavy religious weight: guilt, punishment, sacrifice. But the Course completely redefines this concept. Here, atonement means correction, not of a sin, but of a misperception. And that error is specific: the belief that you could not know who you are. Think about that for a moment. The Course says that the only thing any living being can know with certainty is what it is. Everything else can be questioned, debated, revised. But your own nature is the starting point of all certainty. When you doubt that, you are not making a legitimate philosophical inquiry. You are denying the only foundation that exists. And the entire world was built upon that denial. This is not an exaggeration. The Course states that the world is literally a place created by those who refuse to recognize themselves and who keep returning, life after life, until atonement is accepted. Not as punishment, but because a mind that denies itself creates experiences that reflect that denial. It seeks outside what can only be found within. The question that should not exist. Who am I? It seems like one of the deepest questions a human being can ask. Philosophers have dedicated their lives to it. Entire spiritual traditions have been built around it. And yet, the Course takes a surprising position. This question can only be asked by someone who has already refused the answer. Not because the answer is difficult, but because whoever truly knows what they are does not ask. You do not wake up in the morning wondering if you still exist. You do not question whether you are a living being. There are things you simply know, not through reasoning, but through immediate evidence. The Course is saying that your identity as God's creation has that same character of immediate evidence. Doubt is not a natural state. It is a choice, and a choice with consequences. When you position yourself as someone who does not know who they are, you automatically become a questioner of something that is, in fact, the only certainty you possess. And then a chain of confusion begins. If I do not know what I am, I could be anything. I could be insufficient, fragile, guilty, lost, separate. I could be what the world tells me I am. And the world has many stories ready to fill that void. The division of the mind. The Course explains that denial did not change what you are. This is fundamental. You did not become less than you were created to be by doubting yourself. But what happened was a split. Part of your mind continues to know the truth, while another part acts as if it did not. And here is the detail that the lesson's text points out with great precision. The part of you that doubts cannot truly be you, because if it were, certainty would be impossible. You cannot simultaneously be the source of knowledge and the one who questions that knowledge, not genuinely. The questioner is a construction. It is the ego, which needs doubt to survive, because it is the doubt about your identity that gives the ego its power. Atonement corrects exactly this. It does not create something new in you. It does not transform you into something you are not yet. It simply undoes the strange idea. The Course uses the word strange deliberately, that it is possible to doubt yourself and still not know who you are. what lies beyond doubt. The Course says something that may be startling in how absolute it is. What you are is set forever in the mind of God and in your own. It is not a statement about the future. It is not something you need to earn or deserve. It is a description of what is already the case, right now, in this moment, regardless of what you think about yourself. This changes the nature of spiritual work. It is no longer a climb towards something you do not yet have. It is more like cleaning a window. The light is already there. What you do is remove what keeps you from seeing it. Atonement is that process of removal, and it begins with acceptance. Accepting atonement for yourself is not an act of humility, but of courage, because it means refusing the story of insufficiency the world offers and standing firm in what God declared about you from the beginning. You are as He created you, full stop, not as a distant ideal, but as a present reality. What does this have to do with others? There is a dimension of this lesson that goes beyond the individual, and the Course does not let it pass unnoticed. It says, "What we accept as what we are proclaims what everyone must be, along with us." This may sound abstract, but it has a very concrete application in daily life. When you live from a fragmented identity, when you operate as someone who does not know who they are, who doubts their worth, who sees themselves as separate, you reflect that to those around you, not necessarily in words, but in the quality of your presence, in your reactions, in the way you treat the people who cross your path. When, on the other hand, you accept atonement, when you anchor yourself in the certainty of who you are, something shifts. You begin to see in others the reflection of what you have accepted in yourself, not as a mental exercise, but as a perception that emerges naturally from a mind that is no longer divided against itself. The Course expresses this directly. Fail yourself, and you fail everyone. Not as a threat, but as a description of how the mind works. We are interconnected in a way that goes far beyond what we can perceive with the physical senses. What happens in one mind resonates in all others, because in creation, all minds are one. Today's practice. The practice structure of Lesson 139 is simple and focused. 5 minutes in the morning and 5 at night, dedicated to this review. I will accept atonement for myself, for I remain as God created me. And every hour throughout the day, a brief pause to repeat that dedication, setting aside the thoughts that pull the mind away from its purpose. What the Course asks for in these pauses is not an intense effort of concentration. It is almost the opposite. It asks that you allow your mind to be cleared of the foolish cobwebs which the world would weave around the Holy Son of God. The image is beautiful and precise. The world does not build steel prisons. It builds cobwebs. Fragile, but sticky. Thoughts of worry, comparison, judgment, doubt. They have no real substance. But they occupy the mind and distort perception. The daily practice is the act of recognizing that these cobwebs are fragile and choosing not to get caught in them. Not because you are forcing yourself to do something difficult, but because you are cultivating the habit of returning to what is true. It is a discipline of recognition, not of effort. When doubt appears, it would be naive to think that reading this lesson resolves doubt once and for all. The conditioned mind will resist. It will keep asking questions about who you are, what you deserve, whether you are on the right path. This is expected. The ego needs the questions to survive. But the lesson gives you a tool. When doubt appears, you can recognize it for what it is, not as a legitimate question that demands investigation, but as the signal that a part of the mind is acting as though it does not know what it cannot, in truth, fail to know. That recognition, in itself, is already atonement in action. The Holy Spirit is the agent of this correction. He does not force anything. He simply remains present as the voice of certainty within you, available whenever the mind is willing to listen. Today's practice is a way of making yourself available to that listening, of stopping for a few minutes, feeding the cobwebs, and simply remembering the knowledge that was never lost. The Course makes a statement that deserves to be received slowly. We have not lost the knowledge that God gave us when He created us like Him. It is not something that is gone and needs to be found again. It is something that is there, intact, waiting to be remembered. And memory is not only individual. To remember for yourself is to remember for everyone, because all minds are one in creation. When you accept atonement for yourself, you are not doing something isolated. You are participating in a movement that affects the whole. Every mind that returns to the certainty of what it is contributes to the clarity of all others. This gives today's work a dimension that transcends the personal. It is not just about feeling better or having a pleasant spiritual experience. It is about accepting a role. The role of someone who refuses to perpetuate confusion, who chooses to anchor themselves in truth, and, in doing so, lights the way for others who are still lost in questions. Lesson 139 does not ask you to change who you are. It asks you to accept what has never changed, to stop asking what you already know, to stop searching in external places for what is permanently established within you, and to go your way, as the text says, rejoicing in the endless love of God. There is nothing to achieve. There is only something to accept. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next lesson.